Hi guys, the Housing Minister appeared on the BBC Breakfast Show where he ridiculed Nigel Farage's current plan to engage in mass deportations, which includes 5 flights a day to countries around the world, getting asylum seekers out. Now, one of the countries mentioned, of course, is Afghanistan, where a lot of asylum seekers are originally coming from. But the plan to send people back there is problematic because you need to have a deal with the Taliban, although that's not completely true. Have a listen.
One party who suggested a more radical approach is Reform UK, who we've spoken to here on the programme this morning. They're calling for mass deportations of people who arrive here illegally. What do you make of that suggestion?
Well, I don't think it's a serious plan from the scant details I've seen. Let me give you an example. I think one of the core proposals that Reform are making is that they will come in and secure returns agreements with a range of fairly unpalatable regimes across the world, including in Afghanistan and Iran. And their whole plan to me seems to hinge on that point. And I just ask your viewers, and fair-minded viewers I think will engage with this objectively, what happens if Reform cannot in that scenario negotiate returns agreements with the Taliban in Afghanistan? Where do the planes go? What happens if they can't get a returns agreement with Iran, a country that is currently being sanctioned by the UK? So when you have back-of-the-fag packet plans like this that aren't feasible, that won't work, absolutely, Reform can stoke anger on an issue which I know many of your viewers across the country will feel real concern about. We will get on with the unglamorous but practical and hard-headed steps that we're taking to bear down on this problem and meet our commitment to end hotel use in this Parliament.
Okay, so he's right on the surface that if you don't have an agreement with other countries, you can't send planes there. But one country does have something of an agreement when it comes to Afghanistan. Have a listen.
Gerald Knaus is a migration analyst and director of the European Stability Initiative. That's a think tank here in Berlin. Welcome back to DW, Gerald. Germany today resumed its deportations to Afghanistan, and that was despite criticism from human rights organisations and opposition politicians. So why are these German deportations to Afghanistan so controversial?
It's an interesting question because those that are sent to Afghanistan are people who have been denied protection by the German Asylum Agency and by the courts, because you can always appeal to the courts. And in addition, Germany focuses on those who've been convicted of crimes. Now, I don't know the crime history of each of these people, but we already had one deportation of people last year from Germany. And then two, people who had been convicted of crimes were sent to Afghanistan. And this is not a violation of any EU law. This is not a violation of the Refugee Convention. The real difficulty has been the diplomacy required, because Germany has not until now been negotiating or recognizing the Taliban regime. So the political issue has not been whether you can send these people to Afghanistan, you can, but whether you should talk on this with a regime that, of course, is viciously persecuting women in Afghanistan and that has serious problems with its general human rights record.
Okay, so what's happened here, it seems, excuse me, is that the German government have allowed officials from the Taliban to come to Germany to facilitate the deportation. Now, they have not recognized the Taliban government. They've not recognized this government in Afghanistan. And it seems they've also facilitated the deportation by giving individuals about €1,000 in order to rebuild their lives in Afghanistan. Now, we're talking about very small numbers here. The latest deportation was 81 individuals. But this is something that Nigel Farage and the far right can point to and say, well, look, Germany is doing it. Why shouldn't we do the same? Now, there are some loopholes in a sense. You know, one is you're making sure that people don't end up in destitution, so the courts can't deny the government deporting people there. This seems to be getting around the issue of the European Convention on Human Rights, because Germany is not recognizing the Taliban, is not recognizing that state. So you're dealing, I don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. They're getting around some of these human rights protections. And of course, organizations who champion human rights are concerned about this. So this is something that maybe the British government will engage with as well, and certainly Nigel Farage will jump on. But this could potentially breach human rights. We're talking about very small numbers at the moment. We're talking about giving people money to go, in a sense. But this could be expanded, and it could eventually see a situation where the British government recognizes, under Nigel Farage, recognizes the Taliban in Afghanistan. The only country that seems to be doing it is Russia at the moment. But if a Nigel Farage government recognized the Taliban as a legitimate government, then it would facilitate more deportations, I believe. And it would be more difficult for the courts to block them. Not saying that they wouldn't be able to, but it might be more difficult. So Germany may become a model. So you don't need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights in order to deport people to what is many believe is an unsafe country. But you can get round it by giving people money, or saying that these people are criminals, or they have exhausted the domestic justice system. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. And anyone in Germany who knows more about this, please let me know in the comments.